And hello, everybody. Welcome to Live Oak. I'm Kendra Wise. I'm your worship associate this morning. And I want to welcome you on this beautiful fall equinox morning. I know beautiful might be a stretch when it's gray and cloudy, but I'm also reminded that part of the way our particular biome gets moisture is from the fog and coastal layer. And so this is part of where we are on the planet. And I'm grateful to all of you for being here with us today. Live Oak's very own Jeanne Northsinger is going to be our speaker today. Jeannie's a member of the worship committee and the coordinating team, and she has also brought care and love to Live Oak as a member of the restorative action committee, as well as in other ways too numerous to count. And I know that all of us have had direct experience with her love and care, and I'm really looking forward to her sharing today. Thank you, Jeannie.
For our call to worship today, I will be casting the circle by walking around the periphery of the room. And while I do that, I invite you to help to create the receptacle in which we will experience our service today. And so I start here in the east, the place where the sun rises, and we call to mind people who are part of our community who are in the east from a directional standpoint, like Deborah, who is in Iowa, and others who may be people we care about or who are part of our community who live in the direction of the east. And now in the south, the time of the summer and the midday and work and play, we call in and loop in the people that we know who live to the south of us here, people who are part of this community or others that we care about. And we include all the people that come to mind for us as I move into the west, which is the season that we are in right now, the time of the fall, the going within. And I loop in the people who may be sitting outside the circle, working or sitting at the edges of our sanctuary, and the people who are on Zoom, and anybody who lives to the west of us. And as I move on toward the north is the place of the night, the winter, the quiet, sleep and dreaming. And we think of people who live to the north of us who may be joining us on Zoom, or who may just be people that we know that are part of our community, and we call them to mind and include them within the circle that we create together. And now I return again to the east. And before I complete the circle, we just allow any energies to be released that are distracting or that are not part of our program today. And the circle is cast. Water is a symbol of our personal energy, our feelings, introspection, and the way we follow the flow of energy. The natural flow of water embodies the concept of Followship, which came together for me during a year-long leadership training called Compassionate Leadership, based on the work of Marshall Rosenberg, who wrote the book Nonviolent Communication. One component of the program involved writing a leadership plan. My leadership plan was a Followship plan. It begins with following my own energy. The way I understand the practice of following my own energy is to simply notice what happens internally when I'm making a decision. Does my energy rise or does it drop? Do I feel drawn to it or repelled by it? This is something I learned from the book, The Introvert Advantage, and I use it for big and small things. For example, recently I talked to a friend during the daytime and confirmed that I was coming to her game night that evening. But all day long, whenever I thought of it, I just felt more and more tired. And so because I try to keep my commitment to myself, to follow my energy, I called and told her that I wasn't going to be able to come after all. Now that is a small thing, although we often do feel like we're letting people down when we change something that we've said we would do. Over the past few months, I've had to withdraw from commitments, many of them here at Live Oak, because I was dedicating myself to my health and to taking care of things at home. And all my energy was going in that direction, to the point where whenever I thought about contributing to something or making a commitment, I just felt myself retreat. And I was especially feeling like I was letting down the worship ministry because I hadn't been able to make a commitment to help with any Sunday services for many months. And then about 3 weeks ago, I woke up on Saturday morning and I had the idea for this service. Part of it had been written before in Jonathan's sermon writing class in the spring, but I just felt enthusiastic about trying to see if I could find readings and songs, and I started working on it myself, and then I contacted the worship ministry and other people, and that enthusiasm continued to build. Choosing to deliberately follow those feelings has become a guiding practice that significantly changed how I respond to life. Certainly, I also use reason to make rational decisions, measuring the pros and cons. Have any of you ever taken a piece of paper and divided it down the middle, plus and minus? Or maybe you've just done it within your head, making kind of a mental list to try to make a decision. And then after you've done all that, you decide entirely against whatever it was that I know I have. And I think the reason for that is that the length of the lists are not the important thing. I think what counts is how much we value the items that end up on the list, and we end up making what we call a gut decision, and I call that following the energy. Here's something I'm guessing all of us have experienced. Doing something that didn't go well, and afterwards saying, I knew that was not a good idea. I knew that was not a good idea. But I know now, probably none of you have ever had a hard time saying no. Maybe you never do something at your own expense out of a sense of duty, and maybe you never end up feeling resentful about that. You probably never go along to get along. Since I use attention to my energy more often, I'm less likely to agree to do things that I don't have time or energy to do, or that I simply don't want to do. I try to let my feelings guide my choices. Now, we all have duties and responsibilities that we have little or no choice about. We have to take care of things. However, our first UU principle, which affirms the inherent worth of dignity of every person, includes honoring our own life energy, considering how we use our time, and it involves reliable self-care. I invite you to think of something you're eager to do, something that you have enthusiasm for, the kind of thing that wakes you up in the morning and you want to get started on it. Notice what that feels like for you. Now think of something that someone else wants you to do that doesn't really fit with you in some way. Maybe you don't have time to do it well, or maybe you don't think it's important to do. For whatever reason, you don't want to do it. Notice what that feels like. Stay with that for a moment. I describe that feeling as my energy dropping. Can you feel the difference between a yes and a no, or a hesitation? Making decisions based on those feelings is what I call following the energy. My experience with the concept of followship started with following my energy, but has expanded to be more general. When I listen deeply to someone else, I try to go where they are. I resist the tendency to offer my perspective or suggest an answer. Often, following them in this way, I'm surprised by the path of discovery they take to an understanding or insight different from anything I might have thought of. Followship does not require agreement with the other person. It can involve reflecting what we think they are saying or asking leading questions to support their process. The challenge is to hold back on my views or promptings. Can you think of a time you were telling someone something and they offered you a solution or their opinion about what you needed to do? How did that feel? Even if we later come to agree that that was the best option, we are never as satisfied with someone else's advice as we are when we come to an insight or idea on our own. However, support in finding our own answer may be facilitated by a sensitive listener. Ram Dass said, "All you can do for another person is be an environment in which, if they wanted to come up for air, they could." All you can do for another person is be an environment in which, if they wanted to come up for air, they could. Just feel the spaciousness in that. It's like the whole room just expanded a little bit. Now, it isn't easy because we always are thinking of other people's well-being and trying to offer support. Think of a conversation with someone when you knew exactly what they could do or to resolve a problem they were sharing with you. Now imagine yourself resisting the impulse to advise them. Think of a way you might mirror what they said. Our impulse to solve their problem is well-intended, but if we can restrain ourselves, sometimes they will come up with the same thing we have in mind on their own, and it is much more gratifying for them. And sometimes they find something entirely different. I think of what I'm describing as holding space, and I'd like to talk about the concept of holding space. As I understand it, holding space is a state of mind that allows for the natural flow of ideas. Holding space is creating a safe container for thoughts, concepts, and opinions to develop. This is especially important in group process. Holding group space over a period of time, we can observe the different interactions, reactions, or responses of various people. It involves sensing the tension or enthusiasm, agreement or friction, whatever is present in the group. The aim is to understand the needs of individuals and the group as a whole, and hold all interests with empathy and compassion. Following group energy and holding space is more than just listening. As our third UU principle says, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. It is a big container, holding many perspectives and opinions. If you're willing, let's do a little practice with that idea. Imagine that we are in a meeting or gathering of some sort. It could be a serious meeting or a casual get-together. And someone is speaking. As we hold the space for that, we're also aware of our own response or reaction. Are we curious? Do we have an opinion? Do we have an opinion? Maybe more than one. Now let's expand our attention to the group energy. So we're taking in the words of a person, we're noticing our own response, and then we expand to take in the room. What do we sense among those who are present? Interest, tension, impatience, all of those things and more? Holding space means being present for and recognizing these varying concerns. Within the container of the safe space, a collective life force is present, and we can respond to it. A field of possibilities exists where an answer or decision leads to the next field of possibilities, and on and on. Following the energy can feel like riding a wave. In going with the flow of our own energy, that of another person, or even of a group, we can find it effortless, or at least an easier way, of doing things. Compare the feeling of riding a wave to that of trying to push against it, like at the beach with a wave breaking against you. Summing up, fellowship involves aligning with the life force by sensing energy, our own personal energy or that of another person or group of people, holding space for discovery and then riding the wave to let the energy carry us. For me, this is also a way of living our UU principles. It supports a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and the intention we hold for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Hold open the space, follow the energy, ride the wave. Happy autumn equinox, and blessed be.